When thinking about debating and when we get into the topic of persuasive speeches, there is an issue in today's world that comes to my mind, and it is young voter participation. And by young voter, I mean the age group of 18 to 29, which is typically the college age, which is the peers I'm speaking to. To me, this is a very important topic. We've become very complacent and almost non-participatory in this act at all. Many feel they're not educated enough. They don't feel it's a responsibility but a right, and it's their privilege to decide, which it is to an extent, but non-participation I don't think is something that we can practice anymore. To me, it's very important in beginning my discussion why I feel it's important and why I feel participating is the right thing to do. I like to think of the question, what if somebody made the decisions for the rest of your life? You had no part in making any decisions for your life. And that to me makes a very, very strong argument. That's what voting is. It's taking a part in your life and the people that govern our world as a whole, but your place within it. In beginning to talk about it, there's statistics you point out through doing research and things like that. In 2014, it was on MSNBC that I read that in 2014, voter turnout for people between the ages of 18 and 29 was 13%. That means less than a quarter of us participated. Less than a quarter of the people in our peer group thought it was important enough for them to flex their political muscle, which to me is terrifying. In the not very distant future, we're all going to be at the age that many of our politicians are now, and it's going to come to us to run our country, and it seems so few of us are participating or have that experience or even the knowledge. And if we aren't comfortable with the knowledge now, who do we expect to run the country for us later? Sites like the Huffington Post and MSNBC have cited facts that many feel they're not educated enough to flex that muscle. They're not educated enough to participate. And because they feel illiterate in the topic, it's better if they don't participate. You've got to care more about the things that matter to the people who are participants in life. And I think we don't vote and we say, well, I don't know enough, so I shouldn't. It's because we don't really care. We've become very complacent, and it's a very trending kind of society we live in now, especially targeted at our age group, that we want to know about social media and things like that, which is great. But two, we've got to become more politically aware. It's to not take advantage of your civil liberties is to allow others to make choices for you. We've become a complacent generation that is fine with being led, but not trailblazing, which I feel is something we've completely gotten away from. Even the founding fathers of our country, these guys were young. They were not old men like people suspect. Thomas Jefferson was 33. James Madison was 25, I believe. These were men who were not old white men in wigs in their 40s and 50s. They were joked about as the founding teenagers or the founding 20-somethings. So it's at this age we need to become more socially aware. There are sites like rhrealitycheck.org that impress upon young voters what can happen if you don't participate and you become lazy in that aspect of life. There are things like one of the big social issues we face nowadays is abortion and birth control. Were our age group not to actively participate in that, there's limited access to birth control, more expensive fees and things like that for abortions. These are things that directly affect us. Voting rights and voter, the things that are necessary for voter, the IDs you have to show, and they kind of are directed towards limiting the people in our age group, people in college campuses, putting that hurdle in front of them like no other age bracket or demographic to block them from voting. To deny people of this is also one of the big social issues that faces our age that we're affected by, are things like gay marriage and other civil liberties. And if we don't participate, we're not doing ourselves a disservice. We are doing everybody in our country a disservice. We can't allow this to happen to us. We've got to make something happen for us. We've got to be the change in that. I think the only way that we can change this is if we actually become active participants in educating ourselves on the issue. There are sites such as the League, rockthevote.com, declareyourself.org, mychoicemyvote.com. These are all vehicles for educating yourself and getting involved. We can still be a part of our future. We've just got to become more active. We've got to seek that information. We don't live in the 40s and 50s when there were labor unions and that was how information was disseminated to different groups. We have to seek it out ourselves. We've got to become more proactive in that respect. MSNBC has called us the best educated youth in 20 years, which I feel is not completely, it's not an honest statement. It's something like over the past 20 years, our age group has educated as more responsible for our self-financing of school. And we have twice the student loan debts as other generations before us. This is another reason that as young voters, we need to be participating because our cost of education has risen so dramatically. This is something else that we need to put our voices out there. We have to have full participation and can't expect it to fall completely on the shoulders of our leaders. We've got to be proactive. This is our future. We've got to take a stand for it and say that we care enough to get this information ourselves and be advocates for our future and the decisions that are part of our lives.